the shop floor with screens on the wall that was all linked up to the IT. So there was real-time communication, and that was something that came from the culture working group. So the culture review, next, leadership development. So pulled those leaders together as a leadership team, because they were functioning as heads of department, and all that was doing was exacerbating the silo mentality. So brought them together as one team using Lumina Spark, which is a personality tool, and Lencioni, which is a tool to really help build strong teams. And it was, you know, fantastic results, followed with individual coaching. So I worked with each of the leaders to really help embed those organizational behaviors that we'd identified in step one. And what was really exciting, actually, and this was purposeful, I was brought in at this time deliberately, was that there was a transition in CEO. So the original CEO had been there 10 years, and so we really wanted this piece of work to go alongside the new CEO taking the reins. And I think that was just the best thing about the whole project, because he took up those reins and he has been driving it in the most positive, exciting way. I'll talk a bit about that in a bit. We looked at process improvement. So I brought in representatives from each of the departments, and we mapped the processes and identified service standards. So everybody knew what was expected of each other. We put in place measures for changing plans. No one was allowed to change a plan in a day. You knew what you were doing in a day, and you were able to work full speed to getting it done. They couldn't just put a stop on a production line 3 or 4 times like what they were doing. People were streamlined in how they were delivering. And we stopped that negative reporting and started talking about the successes instead. And within 6 months, the blame culture had really started to dissipate. The vibe was starting to kick in. And I obviously spent quite a bit of time looking at the people processes. So I implemented a performance management process where where the managers were working with their team members on a monthly basis. They had time with their team members just to review objectives, look at performance, deal with any issues, just have that connection with the manager. And that was for everybody, even the guys in the production line. So because employees, we were 15 minutes of FaceTime where it's just you and your supervisor is important to have on a monthly basis. So they felt valued. We made sure that there were SMART goals wherever possible with regular check-ins. People knew what they were aiming for collectively across the organization. We brought recruitment in-house, and that was massive. So when I started there, as I said earlier, a huge proportion of the staff, well, a large proportion of the staff were temporary. And although they had a recruiter working for them to bring the best of the best in, unfortunately the people that were coming in for like a day here, a day there, were not the best, and had a massive impact on the culture and the experience, the employee experience of those permanent staff. And so we brought in-house a recruitment process and made sure that there was no more sort of, you know, 1 day here, 2 day there, that we brought in people on contract over those busy periods. And we realized that actually bringing someone in on a 3-month contract, even if the work wasn't necessarily there, had a greater impact and was cheaper than just pulling in people as and when, because of the negative impact they had. And we provided learning plans for critical skills. So where there were critical career pathways and skills that we needed to retain for the quality of the product, we put in those 2-year learning experiences, which was really positive. And then finally, staff training. So we trained all of the managers and supervisors using the culture and the behaviors as a foundation, and introducing contemporary best practice management behaviors. So everybody in the organization were following the same processes and were using the same softer skills, if you like, to deal with problems, deal with mistakes, deal with development. And it was really positive. So the outcomes, the culture and values are at the heart of that organization now. I see so often posts by the CEO where he's talking about the values and the importance of them, and the importance of the people in the organization. And it's not just him; it's his staff as well. And it's wonderful to see people who really truly have embraced those. Visible and engaged SLT people, they're walking around the organization, they're approachable, they're part of that business, and people trust them and believe that we're all working together towards that common mission. Communication, innovation, that word over 12 months, we've heard it all so much, but I'm watching from afar how that organization has pivoted in the most ethical but profitable way. Really, really amazing. And that's because they've been able to come together collectively and collaborate. Internal customers service is at the forefront. There are no silos, there's no blame. The collaboration is incredible. The headcount has increased by 100 since I've finished work with them, which was in the middle of 2019. And the attrition reduced massively. There's positive staff stories. And I think what really underpins all of this is that the turnover has gone from 14 million in 2018 to 26 million. And that was over a pandemic. And if you speak to the CEO, he's saying it's down to the culture. He's saying it's down to that employee experience about investing and, emotionally, interpersonally, and financially in that employee experience. So it's a wonderful story to tell, because obviously I was involved in very much so in making that happen. So I've come to the end of my presentation. If you are interested in that case study, you're interested in finding out more about what I do from an organizational development perspective, please do get in touch. But as I said at the very beginning as well, I'm also looking to work with organizations to really enhance the career pathways that people can take in the business, working with employees, but also with managers themselves. So I'm going to stop sharing slides now, and I'm going to come back to you and hopefully answer any questions that you have. Okay. Questions. Do you have any examples of how companies can effectively measure employee engagement? Oh, where's that gone? Oh, is it on the screen? I can't see it, guys. Oh, there, it's back again. So do you have any examples of how companies can effectively measure employee engagement, and how often would you say business should aim to collate this data? That's a really good question. Well, there are, again, 10 years ago, or even now, some organizations would go off and engage external organizations to come in and do full-blown employee engagement surveys. And I'm not saying that's wrong. It gives a really good deep dive, but there's so many different packages now where you can manage your own pulse surveys, where you can get real-time data, and you could be doing that every day. People log onto their system, and you could have a question on, how happy are you with the technology today? Happy face, unhappy face. I'm talking quite basically, but you can get that data on a daily basis, and the more real time that data, the better. Because what you don't want to do is run your engagement survey every 12 months and then take 12 months to respond to it, because people just will not want to engage in the future. So if people are giving information regularly and you're responding regularly, then people trust you, and that boosts that engagement. I hope that was that answered your question, Demi. So Vanessa, what do you think the longer term impacts of working from home could be on employee experience engagement? How cultures need to adapt to engender a great working from home culture and ensure loyalty? I think that's an excellent question. I think that's what many organizations are really, really not struggling with, but tackling that question at the moment. Because I think many people have really enjoyed working from home. You look at these surveys on LinkedIn and various other places, and the majority of people want a mix. Many people want to just stay working from home. And I think for that, what's going to be really important is that organizations look after their people when they're at home, make sure that their work spaces are safe, and that they set up appropriately to be able to deliver. So I think organizations shouldn't, opt out of that same employee care when people are working from home. I think, though, that the reality is organizations are going to want people to come back together in some way, shape or form. And I think that there should be purpose behind that. You shouldn't just say, right, everybody back at the office, because half of the people at least will reject that, because they'll go, I've worked from home perfectly well for the last 12 months. So it needs to be a meaningful reintegration back into the office. So it could be around specific team collaborations. It could be around specific projects or activities. It shouldn't just be a, right, standard, you're back 3 days a week, because people just won't accept that. It needs to be meaningful. But yeah, I think from a culture perspective, you know, where organizations have shone through their workplace culture, like the Googles of the world and other local organizations that I'm trying to think of the Cooper Parry's, where they've had this amazing workplace. Yeah, people need to rethink it. And I think people are looking at it from an employee perspective going, is that really important to me anymore, that I've got a snooker table? Because actually I'd rather not have a 4-hour commute to work. You know what I mean? So I think it's each organization to its own. I really think that it should be designed around people's individual needs where possible, but also around different jobs, and really just try and be as inclusive as possible. So I hope that answered your question. Does anybody have any other questions before we sign out? Okay, well, thank you very much. I hope you found that interesting. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.